morning. Well, or whatever time it is where you are. This is Guru Mayor, and I'm bringing you another class in the series that I'm calling A Touch of Emotional Liberation. So these are some themes from my book, Emotional Liberation, Life Beyond Triggers and Trauma. And what I want to do is bring you a 20-minute class. Today we're going to do an 11-minute practice. Just give you some ideas to work with and some practices to help you do that. And I hope it helps. So what we've done in the first two classes is to look at a pattern that you have where you get triggered, so everything's fine, and then something happens that is very unique to you, that it really upsets you, and then you start a whole cascade of reactions. And then in the second class, we tried to look a little closer at that in a meditative way to begin to examine it, like a doctor examines the patient so they can find out what's going on and how to help it. So today I want to talk about the core element of our emotional reactions, which is the emotion, and how to manage it. And then we'll do a practice to help with that. So what does triggered mean? Triggered means that something fires off in you that you don't like what's going on. It feels like survival's at stake. It feels like something's really wrong, and then you sort of lose control of your cognitive function. So that means we want to talk about two parts of your brain that we can call your executive functioning brain, prefrontal cortex, and your emotional brain, the core centers, the older parts of your brain that govern emotional reaction and some other things. So the problem is that normally you're happy, fine, thinking about your career and how to have a good relationship. But when you're triggered, that all goes out the window, and your emotional brain takes over in a very primitive effort to survive, because you actually feel that something's threatening you and survival's on the line. We'll get into some more details about what's going on in your belief system later in the series. But for today, just looking at how we lose it, is that the older instinctual part of our brain takes over and says, you better fight and hurt the person that you love, because survival's on the line. And then you hurt the person you love, you run away from a job opportunity, you eat too much or overindulge in something because you feel bad. And the emotion's in control. So how are we going to be civilized people and actually have some control over our emotions? Well, the word control is a little bit fraught, because we think of that as somewhat of a bad thing, but I want to tell you that out of control is not preferable. So control in the sense of emotion means the emotion has a very ancient and real purpose, and actually can help you. So we don't want to control the emotion by squashing it. If you're familiar with my work, you know that that's really obvious. We don't want to just repress our emotions. But what we're talking about today in an emotional reaction is we don't want the emotion to just take over and run our lives and ruin everything. So meditation and yoga comes to the rescue here, because we can do techniques, and we'll try one here in a minute, to bring our meditative mind, our cognitive mind, our intuitive mind, or those functions of the mind, of the brain, to bear. So the short story is that when you get emotionally reacting, your emotions take over your cognitive function, you lose it, right? Yeah, I lost it. But you can also use your cognitive function to totally repress the information from the emotion, which is valuable information. There's something real about feeling threatened by a loved one just because they won't give you the attention you need right now. But you don't want to go all the way back to, jungle rules where you're, pulling out a club to beat them with, which is probably your words and your behaviors. All right, you get the picture. You know what I'm talking about. So, by the way, if you've been following this series, I've asked you to identify a pattern of reaction, that's familiar to you. It happens more than once. It happens over and over again, where you're triggered, you feel something, and you react in a certain way. And if this is your first time joining this series, just think of something now that it's happened more than once, and it's like, oh yeah, every time he does this, then I feel mad, and then I run away or yell. That's what we're working with. So we want you to play the game here today with one of those. So and the core part of that is when you get upset, when you're reacting, what's the emotion you're feeling? Now, there may be several, of course, but can you name one? Is it anger? Is it fear? Or one of its family variations? Is it shame? Is it guilt? Is it sadness? So that's a first skill, to be able to name, and we'll spend more classes, detailing all of that. But can you name the emotion? That's a really important first start, because that's what we're going to work with today as we start this practice. So have a reaction in mind. And if you can't already name or identify the emotion itself, maybe that'll come clearer in the practice today. So let me outline the practice today. This is 11 minutes where your arms are going to hurt. Does that sound like fun? Yeah. But maybe you're super strong, and maybe you want to do this every day for a while until it's easier. But as always, don't hurt yourself. If you've got sharp pains, if you've got shoulder issues, don't hurt yourself. Be kind to yourself. And on the other side, the balance of that is, if it's muscle pressure and discomfort, try to go for it, go through it, because that's going to affect the brain in the way that we want. But you don't have to hurt yourself or to get the effects. So try your best, be kind. There we go. Now, so here's the practice. You're going to have the right palm facing up straight out in front of you, and the left palm facing down. And those will be straight out, parallel to the ground from the shoulder. Don't start yet. You don't want to burn your time yet until we get started. All right, so I want to say that this represents a downward trend, a dysfunction, your reaction where you do harm, downward, and your upward represents uplifting and being clear, and this is where we're headed, a life beyond triggers and trauma. We'll get into the trauma part later, but right now we're dealing with triggers. Okay, so past, future, dysfunction, function, loss of control, elevated clarity and control. All right, that'll be a good start. Now we're going to do breath of fire together. So through the nose, pumping the diaphragm. I'm representing an average speed. You can go a little slower, a little faster if you want. Would be a faster version. You're probably familiar with this by now, and if not, it's a strong, even breath through the nose. There we go. Again, if you're new to that and it's too much pressure, just ease off and take care of yourself. So there's many parts of this, and some are going to be easier for you than others. Now, for me, the breath of fire is sort of this storm of, it's going to be busy and intense, and that's what happens when you get emotional. When your arms are probably going to start feeling the gravity and telling you like, hey, we don't like this, let us down. And that represents sort of when you're caught up in emotion and it's intense, and this may actually trigger you in a light way where you're just like, I don't like this, and you might. All right, so that's all just little things that you might play with while we're doing it. I say let's begin. All right, so arms out and breath of fire. Close your eyes and start at least with a feeling of elegance, with a feeling of grace or command or something powerful. You've got at least a minute or so, most of us, until the discomfort sets in. So start out feeling very grand and very powerful, and furthermore, let the breath empower you further. Let the breath supercharge you, like you're charging a battery, you're pumping up a balloon that's going to lift you up. Be creative with your mental, emotional, the components of your experience here. And of course, there's a very strong physical component of your experience here. All right, so I'll just keep talking you through it, and if you really rather be on your own and not have my voice bothering you, just tune me out and just go for it here. And in about 9.5 minutes, I'll call for the end of it. And so I want to just be here for you and with you while you're going through this. Coming into your second and third minute. And let things get stirred up. You know, we want to stir things up so we can clean them up and settle them back down. That's sort of what we do often in Kundalini Yoga, to create a pressure and a stimulation that will be beneficial. So keep going. And as much as possible, enter into a very peaceful place. You know, enter into a calm mind, a clear mind. But likely what you'll experience is the confluence or the possible conflict of your conscious mind, which is saying, yeah, okay, hold your arms up, keep going. I'm doing this class and everything's fine. And your emotional brain, which will say, I don't like this, and I don't want to do this, and what's this all about? And that's a protective voice. You know, it does want to protect you, but as you know, when you're triggered, that voice doesn't always know what's best. So what I'm saying here is be aware that you've got these two complementary but almost, sort of very opposite parts of your mind, where one is intellectual, cognitive, intelligent, cool, and calculating. All right, so have it going. What's it doing? It's going like, I'm here, I feel my body, I feel my breath, I'm in a class, everything's okay, right? And then there's this other part of your mind, your brain, that's like, what's going on here? I don't like this. I'm in danger. Keep going here, folks. You'll go through different phases in a short 11 minutes, right? You'll go through the valley of the shadow of pain and death. You'll go to the heights of the mountains and feel exalted. And in no particular order, but generally you got to go through the depths to get to the heights. So again, do you see what's going on, this conflict between wanting, part of your consciousness being overwhelmed and lost to you, and another part of your mind there, ready, ever present, clear to help you, to save you, to know what to do. Yeah. Okay. So keep going. And as I said before, push yourself to go beyond your barriers and balance that with being kind and taking care of yourself. So now, if I may bring another element into your practice here, are you willing to think about yourself when you're triggered? Right? You got a lot going on, so if you don't want to do this right now, it's your practice, it's your experience. But while you're agitated through this practice, remember that other time when you get agitated, those times when you're really upset, you don't like what's going on. It could be a very active type of upset for you, where you're, angry and acting out that way very outwardly. It could be the other end of the spectrum, where you're shut down, where you're, sad and withdrawing and not communicating, and but probably still there's a lot going on inside your head where the thoughts are churning. Okay, so what can happen while you're in the midst of this powerful exercise is that memory and the experience of those emotions and those thoughts, they don't have the same, they can't really get in and just take hold of you, that they don't control you. That's what I'm hoping is happening for you, that you've got this intense thing that you're doing voluntarily that's keeping you present. That's what's happening. Like you can wander off, and maybe that's avoidance. You can go think about something else and leave the body. That's one way to deal with things. But on the other hand, the strength of this exercise is keeping you here, so you can't lose. Your emotional brain doesn't know the difference between what happened 20 years ago that's still upsetting you and what's happening right now that's not nearly as bad, but you feel the same way. So we've got to bring the mind into the present, so you're back in control. That's what's happening here. So let's see where we're at with time. Getting there. Just about done. So just move yourself powerfully through the last little bit of this. And at the end, we'll just be holding the breath for a few moments, and then I'm going to ask you to sit really quietly, and we'll see if this practice gives you some clarity that can give you some answers, that can help you live beyond the things that have triggered you in the past. So we're coming up to the end. I have to say I've got a clock malfunction, so I'm really sort of estimating the 11 minutes at this point, but it's all good. I think we're about there. Yeah. Okay, so here's the finale. Inhale deeply, hold the position, and just hold the breath right here. And see if you can exalt, okay? And feel right up behind your forehead. Look up here through your closed eyes at the forehead. That's where your intelligence lies and what wants to help you with your emotional upsets. So hold it. Now stay in the position just a little longer. Exhale and inhale again. And hold. Pull strong from below at the core. Exalt yourself. Push through the pain. This is you overcoming instinct and the desire to flee and to be upset. And one more time, exhale and inhale. And hold. Exhale, relax. Arms down, sit quietly. Feel a still, peaceful body and let the mind follow that into just peaceful stillness. Don't need to think, just be here. It's over. I'm clear now. Let your energy and spirit rise. Feel the clarity of consciousness. It'd be beautiful to just hang out here as long as you want. But I'm going to ask you now from this place, from this elevated consciousness, look at your pattern, your upset. Look at the emotion that you're feeling when you get upset. Observe it now from this place of consciousness. Be not intimidated by it, right? And just, here's this thing I feel. But now I can feel it and not be overtaken by it. Now I can sort of go, oh, hello, anger. That's interesting how you come to me when he says that. Why do you come to me? And what is it you want? What is it I need when that's happening that you can help me with? And let the answers come from the emotion, from your body, not from your clever ideas. So it's your time now to experience yourself and learn from yourself about yourself. If you're engaged in a good process there, keep it going while I just give a few sign-out remarks here for this class. We're developing a skill to awaken the instinctual part of the mind and the cognitive part to work in tandem rather than against each other. So by doing some practice that elevates us, then we're in a position to gather, harvest the instinctual beneficial purpose of an emotion rather than have it just cause chaos. Interpret that ancient evolutionary instinct, interpret it through our intellect, and then know what to actually do to better our situation. Does that sound good? That's what we can all learn to do, and we must learn to do if we're going to have peace in our minds, in our homes, on this planet. So that's the promise of emotional skills, intelligence. And the promise is emotional liberation. So if you would like more of this, see my series, any of these archives, go to emotional-liberation.com and you can order my book or take my course and get yourself on top of these emotions so you can live in peace. That's my prayer for you. Thanks for joining me today, and take care.